Hello and welcome to today's Hive Masterclass. We're really fortunate to have Sonal from the Study Pod, and they're a fantastic organization which combines both learning with mindfulness, which is not a really common way to, combine these two topics. You'd say, okay, I'm going to go be mindful and now I'm going to go and learn. So bringing those together from such a young age instills really good sort of practices, mantras, and a way and approach to learning. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the mind, right? If you can't keep your mind active and sane, then it's going to be really hard to learn, especially where students and kids today have so much going on around them. We're seeing huge amounts of chaos on the news, all the way through to 11 plus exams that you have to get done. You've got to do all this work. It's tough, right? It's tough to navigate. So we're really fortunate. We're really keen to put on a session about how to support your child's mental health. And with Sonal sharing her insights, her thoughts, and a little bit more about how parents, supporters, advocates, those who work with children can actually support and help guide our future generation to be the best person that they can be. So yeah, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Sonal and take it away.
So thank you, Rishabh, first of all, for even just having me here, because obviously it's always nice to be on a platform with and just kind of reach out to lots of people in different ways. Social media is good at making sure that we can all kind of get some, I guess, something. We can always learn something, right, from lots of different people. And I mean, like I say, you've just said, kind of hit the nail on the head about amalgamating education and mindful practices and basically mental health together. A lot of people, yes, they go to like a yoga class, and that's separate to then going to a tuition center, or they're never really basically put together. And I think after COVID, we had a huge problem where lots and lots of children face quite challenging circumstances when it came to their mental health. And then it was up to sort of parents and teachers and kind of the wider leads to take responsibility, really. So there are many reasons kind of why I've done this at the Study Pod. So I've been a primary school teacher for 13 years now. And within my classroom, I don't think I've probably been given a set manual to say sometimes children will find, situations overwhelming. This is what you do. And you get a very prescriptive manual for teaching maths, a very prescriptive manual for teaching English, a very prescriptive manual for teaching basically subjects. But when it comes to this overall mental health and well-being aspect, you don't really. So this is the reason that at the Study Pod, I decided to put these two things together. I've been through some personal experiences in my life, and it was only when I was kind of, 30 plus that I had to then learn how to cope with difficult situations as they arose. Through the use of meditation and yoga and mindfulness practices. So that's why I thought, what a great idea to start from such a young age, so that our children basically, don't get into their 20s or 30s and then think, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I don't know how to cope. If they've already got those kind of things in place from such a young age, I'm not saying life will be easier, but they will be able to cope better. So that's kind of why I put the two together. Whilst working as a primary school teacher with 30 kids in the classroom, I one day just decided that I was going to switch all the lights off. I was going to put on some really relaxing music. I was going to change the colored, the lighting to a colored kind of mood. And I basically just did a meditative practice with all the children, a meditation session. I think it was no more than 10 minutes long. And the result was phenomenal, because every single child said, I feel so much more relaxed now. The issue is playground at playtime were no longer in existence. There were so many things that were eliminated just through something so simple. I don't think I can hear you. I think you're on mute.
That's okay. Sorry. Carry on.
Sorry, did you say something? No. Okay. So that's basically that's why I kind of, you know, I'm doing what I am doing. So really quickly then, for parents, I know it's your time is precious, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up quickly with a couple of things that you can do to help your children. If your child comes home and feels quite distressed about a situation that's happened in school, or they're finding, let's say, homework a challenge or a chore, or general learning a challenge or a chore, rather than saying to these to your children, you need to try harder, which is unfortunately what a lot of parents kind of say, because that's what we want our children to do: try harder, persevere, all of these things. Sit down and actually ask your child, how are you feeling? Because that is so important. How are you feeling? Your child will be able to tell you how they are feeling if they are asked. They probably won't come to you and say, I am feeling like this. So that is really important. Make that space, make that time. Also make it really, really, really important for them to be able, sorry, not important, make sure it's easy for them to open up a conversation with you about it. Also ask them to give you a purpose of why they're doing something. So lots and lots of times we give our children homework to do, or we're expecting them to, you know, do lots of extra work, i.e. tuition, or, you know, books that we've bought them, but there is no purpose. And then your children then start to really lack that engagement. So give them a purpose. And also rewards are really important. Make sure that they have a set of rewards linked to basically their purpose and why they're doing something. I would also say as well, create a timetable with your children. It's so important that you create a timetable with your child. Don't make them a timetable based on what you want and then hand it over to them, because again, there's no purpose in that, or they need a voice to say, actually, can I do this at this time? So if you sit with your child and say, we have to fill in XYZ blocks of time, can you please, you know, let's sit together and do that. That would be a really important way of kind of sitting and working together on it. I would also say try to kind of play games with your child, for example, like Monopoly. How often have we like got board games out and things like that? You'll be so surprised at how games or board games help your child kind of in terms of their engagement of learning. You're still using money and coins, and, you know, overall you're having fun. So everything about learning should be fun. Asking your child to just sit and write for half an hour, in the eyes of a child, isn't fun. So these are really, really important things. Obviously, in terms of activities as well, remember things like yoga or tennis or football or some kind of sport, some kind of gymnastics, any activities outside of the classroom is really, really important. It will actually make your child even more excited to kind of start learning, because they've already had that release of kind of energy, and then they're back to, you know, they're getting their mindset onto some work. And also another thing that I've written is children these days are really not into worksheets. So, you know, as much as we need them sometimes to make sure a child has understood what we want, kind of avoid too many worksheets. Use experiences as opposed to worksheets. That would help your child way more than, you know, just writing in a book. So yeah, I mean, these are just a couple of things. I will go into a lot more detail and description about kind of where you can really help your child through all these things. But these are just a few things that I think would really help you guys. And if you need any more information at all, of course, you can head over to the StudyPod pages on Instagram or Facebook or the website. And there's tons of information there on how you can kind of do these things to engage your child more in conversation. So I hope that's helped you. And yeah, Rishabh, I don't know if I've lost you there or.
I'm here. I'm actually trying to do a live at the same time. So
Oh.
I'm just here like chatting too. So yeah, but it's really, really interesting what you're saying. And I think the point about worksheets and having to change the approach to how we work with kids is really key, right? We need to think a little bit differently. The physical activity is key. But do you think there's ever a risk of overload, right? Where, parents try and get their kids to do like 10 different activities during the week?
Yeah, that's why I said make sure that a timetable is really like useful idea, because when you give your child a timetable and say you are going to do from 4 till 7 this and this and this, they're just like being back at school again, aren't they, for another 3 hours at home. So that idea of making sure that from 4 till 7 they've got something fun to do, there's a bit of a reward there, anything that just makes them that they realize that they can actually have a little bit of work time, a little bit of play, a little bit of work, a little bit of play. No child will succeed with doing 3 hours of work straight. They're not going to be able to retain all the information. So short breaks, and like I keep coming back to purpose, why they're doing something. It's so important they know why they're doing it. Once they've got that understanding of the purpose, they're a little bit more inclined to wanting to continue. Otherwise, it just seems like a pointless task, really. Yeah, I don't know if there are any other questions that you wanted to ask, Rishabh, or anybody.
Yeah, so I think over the last sort of 5 years or so, mental health has become more understood in the broader community.
Yep.
What is there anything that's actively being done in schools though to address mental health that parents should be aware of?
It is a really tricky one. It's very grey in area still. I would love for, and I think a lot of teachers would love for there to be mindful practices or some form of mental health added into our curriculum at school, so it would be mandatory to do. Unfortunately, it isn't mandatory at the moment, but there is a huge shift, I would say, towards more and more and more teachers kind of understanding how to teach well-being and mental health, all that kind of thing, a little bit more in detail. I mean, there's a big program called ELSA, which is rolled out in quite a few schools, but again, it's very selected to children that have specific needs. We kind of want to teach this to every single child, regardless of.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what ELSA is? Sorry, just expand on that.
I'm not trained in ELSA. The schools that I have worked at have always used it, but again, it's a program that really is for a special kind of need of a child. So whether it be emotional or physical, whatever it is, it's there to help specific children through their journey of learning. But there are a few kind of loopholes that you would go through for it. Not every single child would get that training. So we need something whereby you've got a full, almost like I said at the beginning, a program of teach where teachers just are able to kind of use this program and say, yep, this is what I'm going to teach my children in schools. Obviously, we have PSHE and things like that in school. That is mandatory. However, the way it's taught, we probably need a bit more practicality, I would say, for resources.
Yeah. Speaking of practicality, could you run through a couple of things you can do, sort of like trips, or like little tips or tricks that you can do? So let's say a kid is, challenging and they're really in a huff or whatever. Have you got any examples you can walk through with us now, like box breathing or different techniques that, we could take away and try even for ourselves as young adults, as opposed to, or parents, not only for the kids, but
yeah.
Are there any examples that we could try now? That would be quite cool.
We all could do with shutting the door and having some time out. I think that's really important as an adult too. But for a child, we always say to our children, don't we? Especially as a parent, you're quite stressed out, and then your child is kind of, you know, doing something that's not, you know, what you want at that particular moment in time. And we usually say, right, you need to go to your room, or you need to go and calm down. And sometimes that is the worst possible thing to say to a child, go and calm down, because they have no idea what that even means, go and calm down. So the idea that you would literally say to your child, okay, I mean, this is what I've done with certain children in my class before, where I know that this sort of outbursts happen frequently. Get them to make a box, and in that box, they need to put 5 things in there, okay? 5 things that they think are going to help them, like I say, calm down. So it can be one of those stress balls. It could be music. So like, you know, they put a set of headphones on and they have some sort of music playing. It could be coloring, like mindful coloring activities. There could be anything that they really think, oh, you know what, when I do this, I don't feel so stressed. I can relax. I can do this independently by myself. That box can keep sort of being added to all the time. But this is just their way of saying, rather than saying, go and calm down, they know what to do when they get into a huff. They've got this box, they go away into their own space, and hopefully they'll come back. And you don't need to say, go and calm down and then think about what you've done. Because again, think about what you've done. They probably don't even know where they went wrong in the first place, right? So these are all common kind of, you know, things we're all guilty of, even as parents or teachers or wherever, you know, wherever we are. But this is just one of the ways to help, really.
Awesome. And from a point of view of an adult trying to manage or work with a child that's clearly mentally struggling, you know, and has lots of environmental stimulus around them, what are there indicators, or what can the parents start to look out for? Or it might be a tutor, or it might be a teacher. Are there any sort of indicators that you could use that actually, you know what, hey, we need to go to the box? What are those signs?
So it's a bit like, if you think about, I in fact, I've done a live once on this. If you think about think about a volcano, right? So when you have a volcano,
quite topical with Iceland at the moment.
Yes, well, exactly, yeah. So you have a volcano, and in that, how a volcano takes a while to erupt, right? It's not just going to erupt just within a second. So you know that as you start to that volcano, before it erupts, it takes layers and stages. Your indicators really, as parent or tutor or teacher or whoever you are, is to work out when that first layer started before the second layer. If the second layer started, definitely we need to stop there before that third layer, and then we've got our, basically, you know, overload. So you know, if your child is asking for your attention for some kind, and you're kind of, you know, we're all doing it, aren't we? Because we're all busy working on Zoom. Yep, 5 minutes. Yep, I'll be there in a minute. Yep, 2 minutes. Your child already has said, I need you now. And you've given them 3 or 4 or 5 times of just saying, can you leave me alone? So that's your first layer, isn't it, already? But we don't see it as that, because we want our children to constantly be patient and resilient, and all those things are important, but really we are, as parents, guilty of it. So it's just about saying, I've got a sand timer here, or some form of physical time that they know it's now 7 o'clock. At 7:05, I'll be there to see you. So that, if you know what I mean, stops that lava from basically exploding. Because then your child, then you can't cope with the situation. You've already asked them for time and they're not giving it to you, but they don't physically know the concept of time. So this is just one of the examples that I would, as a trigger, or as a, like you said, how would you know before it gets to that point?
Yeah, awesome. So anyone in the audience, there is a Q&A function or a chat function. If you have got any questions as well, please either put them in the chat or in the Q&A area as well. Are there any, just whilst we're waiting for anyone to put those in, are there any things that you can do with kids to get them to work together to start to, you know, not only discuss things, but to be aware of things in a sort of more of a group setting. The reason why I ask that, because a lot of mental health challenges stem from isolation, because humans, you know, are social creatures, or, you know, and getting kids working together quite often allows them to come to solutions that they may not necessarily have managed to achieve on their own. And are there any times that you think, you know, getting a small group together, or get like any sort of things that kids can do in pairs or with their friends, you know, that a parent could, you know, instigate them to go and do that thing? Obviously, they can go make a box together. That's a great example. But yeah, I wondered if there are any things that in that realm of, you know, can kids come together? Is there something that we can do in that way?
I mean, kids coming together, even it depends on where your child is and what you want them to do. If they're if their mindset is that they are happy to join with a group of people, they're happy to engage with that group of people. Like, for example, when we just talked about the child that's really frustrated and just doesn't want to speak to anyone, then we're going to move them away and do something independently. But when they're ready, they're thriving, the group kind of activities are always amazing, because your child is not onerous on your child, like one-to-one. You want them to give you everything, so they're able to say one thing to you, and then obviously they've got a chance to think whilst the rest is going around. So any group activities for children are, you know, amazing. And one of the things that we do is group activities, but just about learning. So why not do group activities to do with icebreakers, or what they're actually into, what are their hobbies, what are their interests? Problem solving is really, really, really good. I did a lesson many years ago where children had to work with a group of children that they've never worked with, they've never spoken to, they don't know anything about. And then they had to basically create a bridge, a paper bridge. So they were given 50 sheets of paper, and they had to create a bridge. And this is all different abilities with all different ages. And we put them into a setting whereby they were like, I don't know anything about these children, but how are we going to work together? So all these problem solving skills, it really boosts your children in different ways. And kind of like when you're talking about Tutor Hive and the whole idea of lifelong learning success, you know, these are the kinds of things that are going to happen in the workplace, aren't they? Your children are going to be put into, like, for example, a corporate company, and they're going to have to do these away days and all these kinds of things. If they don't have the experience from a young age, it may be too new for them.
Yeah, especially with that COVID generation, right? And you must see this more so than I personally will, but there's a definite difference in those that had the formative years, be it early development or even during sort of early teenage development, but then also, you know, those who've just gone into university when the lockdown hit, and the development rate is completely different, and every cohort has been impacted differently. So it's not just, okay, there's a 7 to 9 year old age group that's now different or has other challenges they need to consider. It's the entire way. I mean, it's even adults as well, right? Let's not shy away from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it's, yeah, and that age group particularly is now struggling mentally, and has that mental health pandemic, as it's called, right? As a result. So yeah, I think for bringing people together, that group scenario, being able to work collaboratively, get the best out of each other, working together is the way, you know, that we try and maintain the mantra at Tutor Hive. You know, the best thing is not to isolate, it's to bring the different minds together, the diversity of thought, but also, you know, the approach to and especially when it comes to sharing, right? And I think you talked about the volcano analogy, but no, don't. The last thing you want to do is put a bung in it, because it's going to be more catastrophic, because then the whole thing's going to blow up.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, from our point of view, look, thank you so much as well for the time. I don't know if you have any closing bits you want to share, little nuggets. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have it very quickly in a nutshell. Like I said, kind of spoken about all of or some of the ways that you can help your child. But, you know, one of the things that I probably haven't talked about is sleep. And it sounds silly to say, what does she mean by sleep? But children, and you too, Rishabh, from the sound of it, definitely need to have a really good night's sleep. So, so the fact is that when we don't have a good night's sleep at school or even as adults, the next working day can be really, really, really tough. And that has a huge impact on our mental health. And a lot of parents do actually struggle and say, my child never goes to sleep on time. They're really tired in the morning. Why am I saying this? Because there are things that you can do to help your child with sleep. So, for example, getting that routine, that really good bedtime routine. My daughter has a sleep story kind of playing every night to her on a app. It's called Calm. I'm sure lots of you may know what that means, but there's an app called Calm, and it's Calm for Kids. It's brilliant. And children really, really enjoy that kind of, again, it's like a stimuli, isn't it? It's a way of telling the brain to kind of switch off. So this is another way of really looking after our mental health, or our children's mental health anyway. And any form of sort of yoga before bed or some sort of physical activity before bed really helps to get that good sleep. So when we talk about looking after our mental health, there's just so many different areas, but that again is another one which I can obviously go into a lot of detail later about.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I think, yes, that mixture of physical, mental, it's spiritual is the other bit we didn't really talk about today, but maybe that's a topic for another conversation, and the meditation side. But yeah, I mean, it's quite a complex topic. There's a lot to be had. We are going to be recording this, so you'll be able to watch this back, and we'll snip it up into little TikTok style little snippets for you all. You can go and just engage in that. So look, thank you so much for the time, Sonal. Really appreciate it and what you're doing.
Take care.
Awesome. Take care. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.